Welcome everybody to DC Domingo. It is Sunday, therefore it is Domingo. I'm your host Sergio, and we have a really cool show podcast for you guys today. It's going to be a little bit lengthy, more so than usual. We had a pretty cool week. I'll give you the quick bullet points running down the list. We're going to talk about the Lego Batman versus Superman comparisons. We're going to talk about John Campea, Collider, comicbook.com bias, the regular. Rotten Tomatoes chief editor made a boo-boo, and I have a pretty cool hashtag to go with it. The Batman director has some issues. We're actually not going to talk about The Flash this week because it's a two-parter, for Gorilla City. So I'm going to watch it back-to-back this Tuesday, and then I'll review it in length the next podcast. We are going to talk about the Supergirl episode. Arrow had a really, really special gun episode that met headlines. So I think it's kind of a good thing to talk about it. We are going to get into the history of comics a little bit, so just kind of bear with us. And after that, we're going to get some really sweet stuff, like the Justice League statues. There's a secret screening for Wonder Woman. It's getting all the buzz on Reddit. Patty Jenkins, the director, was also there, along with producer Zack Snyder. We also, just last minute, there was an Ares action figure who's the bad guy in Wonder Woman, which is pretty damn awesome. It's in toy form, so we can only imagine how cool it's going to look on screen. And there's also a last minute Zack Snyder announcement, which is pretty exciting. Thank you for checking out this podcast. Send it to your DC friends. All right, so let's get started on the first topic. I think that's very ridiculous to compare something for children as opposed to something for adults. There has been some comparison between the Lego Batman and the Batman vs. Superman movie, which was pretty hardcore PG-13. Even the extended cut was rated R. So I don't really know what the comparison is. One of the things that I did, which not many movie critics did, is actually look at the history of Lego and Batman and DC Comics. There's a free cartoon on Netflix that, it's basically about Lego Batman joining the Justice League. And oddly enough, the plotline for Lego Batman, it's Batman refuses to accept people into his life. He wants to be a loner, he wants to be alone, fight crime alone. And comes Robin, and he wants to join in. Also, the bad guy wants to make him realize that, the Batman needs the bad guys in order to be cool. And in this instance is the Joker. However, that same synopsis is for the free episode that the Lego Batman and the Justice League on Netflix, and it's available for everybody right now. Instead of Joker, we have Batmite, and instead of Batman having many Robins, Nightwing, Spoiler, all this cool partners like Red Hood, he's joining the Justice League. It's basically the same, and I'm surprised that movie reviewers don't even bring it up, even though it's for free on Netflix, and it's this same synopsis as the Lego movie. I think they want to mention the comparison because kids love Lego Batman, and it's pretty much like just a fun movie. I wouldn't say it's dumb fun. It's pretty fun, kind of like a good Simpsons episode. Whereas Batman vs. Superman is a little bit closer to Game of Thrones as far as dark and gritty. So, I saw this meme going around about Channel Awesome and how they compare the two of them, even though it's not very accurate. So there's this meme: is Channel Awesome better than porn parodies? Of course not. One's childish and one's for adults, But I think it shows you bias that Channel Awesome has bashed DC in the past, and they continue to do that. So I hope you spread that meme around. and show these people that they're kind of, wrong. I've also included this picture of Batman vs. Superman from IMDb Pro. It actually got a 9.6 ratings before the USA critics tore it down, because apparently their rating tastes, not how good it is. It's a sign of the polarization in the United States. I don't think the country's in a good state of mind. I'm not going to get too political, but you can pretty much see it. Also, what I'm showing you right now, it's another movie bundle. There are actually 3 other DC Comics and Batman-related Lego products. We have Justice League, Attack of Legion of Doom, Justice League versus Bizarro League, Batman, The Lego Movie, DC Superheroes Unite. Did you notice anybody in the media comparing the Lego Batman to these 3? Of course not. They're lazy. I myself going to see it next weekend, and throughout the week I'm going to rent his kids' movies and compare it, because that's actually the responsible thing to do. I can already tell that most of these are not going to have the adult jokes that the Lego Batman has, and it'll be interesting to compare it, different kids' products. Why should I care? It's just mostly because it's popular, and a lot of people don't know and don't do research. They just kind of go along with whatever popularity, sheep mentality tells them to do. All right, next topic. Speaking of sheep mentality, this is just a friendly reminder that Brandon Davis, who runs comicbook.com, is pretty biased. So if you see them start, saying negative stuff, unsubscribe, boycott them. Because I think that, media should be held accountable to what they produce. For instance, it's kind of funny that both him and John Campea don't really have a recollection. It's almost like they forget things happened. In this one, and John Campea was like saying, hey, maybe the Justice League should release some footage with actors having fun. And then somebody was like, well, actually, we did that 4 months ago. So yeah, it's people with smartphones who aren't very smart and somehow can't use Google, and that's pretty stupid. So boycott those 2, because they're kind of cancerous and they really don't work well for you. All right, speaking of not working for you, we have this guy, Matt Ashiti. He's the guy who runs Rotten Tomatoes, and he's one of those people who has a certain bias against Batman vs. Superman. So I have come up with the hashtag Ashiti attitude. So feel free to make that trend and make him realize that he's full of shit. I replied, to this post where he says, the Lego Batman, this is so great. I replied with a picture of Austin Powers last week. But, he was also praising Logan and how great that movie was looking. And then I sent him a picture of this. It's the costume that Wolverine has in his comics. The reason why Logan is doing so good is because it's a movie about Logan. We've had a series about Clark Kent for 10 years. It's called Smallville. It's not called Superman. It's called Smallville. For instance, we're having a really enjoyable, series called Gotham. It's not called Batman. So I think that, to take shots at Batman vs. Superman because the Logan movie is doing so good. Yeah, but the Logan movie doesn't deal with comic book, material. It's not like it's called Old Man Logan. It is based on it, but it's a lot easier to make a dystopian future about an old man than to make a dystopian future about an old Batman. Get the difference? So yeah, there's favoritism there going on. And also, if you look at the way the media treated Guardians of the Galaxy versus Suicide Squad, it's like, definitely like night and day, you know. And I think that people should have some perspective because Suicide Squad was breaking all kinds of records. For instance, Super Tuesday sets up like an August record, but also beats Civil War. Here's a link to it. Also, not to mention that it's really, really wrong to compare both sets of movies without keeping in mind the timeline. So, for instance, is Man of Steel better than Iron Man? Is Batman vs. Superman better than The Incredible Hulk? Is Suicide Squad better than the second Iron Man movie? And I think we can all agree which one's the best series. I think Marvel fans are just jealous because, it seems more interwoven, You didn't see the Hulk in Iron Man. There weren't no Easter eggs like the Bruce Wayne satellite. And even though Tony Stark did make a little cameo in the Incredible Hulk, it wasn't Iron Man versus the Hulk. There was like no integration of that universe. And, DC just kicked the door open with Suicide Squad. Whereas Iron Man 2 was shoehorned in with like unnecessary cinematic expanded universe crap. So yeah, I think they're just jealous, and the more we enjoy DC, the more pissed off they're going to become. Now, there is one issue that everybody keeps focusing on, and it's, Matt Reeves supposedly is, the conversations broke down between him and Warner Brothers about who's directing Batman. And quite simply, it's like a date that never happened. You meet people. Sometimes you kind of go, yeah. Sometimes you go, no. So it's just mostly about knowing how Hollywood, functions. I think one of the reasons why Ben Affleck chose not to direct it is because it was going to take a lot out of him. And let's not forget, these people have, a life. They have kids. They have a wife. They also have other productions going at the same time. Christopher Nolan, for instance, spent 10 years on the Batman trilogy. Now, that was enjoyable for him because his wife, Emma Thomas, was the producer. And they could have kids on the set all the time. Basically, he brought his family into the fold, even his brother, his brother who worked in the script, Nolan, too. They're both in there. So it's a very, very different process. So if Warner Brothers said, okay, Matt Reeves, we're going to give you the opportunity to spend 10 years doing 3 Batman movies, and he was like, I don't want that. That could be one of the things where like, hey, do you want to spend a decade of your life doing this? Also, the DC movies give a lot of leeway to directors. So if this guy was just expecting like a 1 movie deal, or just to, okay, I'm just going to come in and shoot. And if Warner Brothers was like, well, actually, we expect you to do more. We expect you to read the comics and bring your own vision and, empower each single movie to be the best that it can be, instead of just like a formulaic, episodic crap. He might have gotten scared because he's like, oh, man, he might not read that many comics. He might not want to invest 10 years. And then, of course, the wild card in the room is always money. He could have been like, well, I want more money. Or maybe Warner Brothers was like, okay, here, have tons of money. He was like, yeah, I don't want it. When people give you too much money to make a movie, they all most likely want more demands or something. So these are all things that a lot of these podcasts never really cover because they've never made a movie. I have made some cable access crap, and even though some people call it crap, I had fun. I learned a lot, from storyboard, script writing, camera angles, narrative, you name it. But the most important aspect is, coordinating behind the scenes stuff. It's ridiculously hard. So you see all these haters talking about it, and if they don't mention any of these negotiations backdoor, then they really don't know what they're talking about. Anyways, so it's 15 minutes into the podcast, so let's get to some really good stuff. We're going to start off with the episode of Supergirl titled Luthor's. It was a really cool episode. I think the writers and the creative team behind it are really getting their hands dirty and just getting the feel of the characters really, really well. Lena Luthor has been, not very, very well explored in the comics, just a little bit, but I can see that in the series they're really going to delve deeply into it. She appears to be kind of a friend to Kara, and Kara's the only one that trusts her in this episode, which is really cool because you can kind of see that the character might be ambiguous. She could be potentially a good person, but she could also, she's a Luthor, so she might give in to the last name and be like, whatever. I'm just going to do what society expects me to do, and, that's all there is to it. Also, it has some really cool special effects. Whenever the Green Martian Manhunter goes in, I'm always excited. They've really been getting really good with the special effects. Metallo looks amazing. There was a lot of cool Easter eggs, like the mech suit. Lex Luthor's mech suit from the comics. It looks spot on. I was really, really pleased. And then the relationship between Mon-El and Sarah, and Supergirl is actually developing pretty nice. And I think it's not so much as a lack of options or forced. It's more like organic. They really developed into their own unique personalities, much like Jensen Ackles did a wonderful season of Smallville, and he was really comfortable in his character's skin. This actor who plays Mon-El, I think he was in the Vampire Diaries. He actually came into and just kind of ran with it, with the character, and he's been a really good sport with the series. So I'm really happy that they're exploring his character a little bit more. And overall, it was a pretty damn solid episode. Now, moving on, we're gonna do justice to the Arrow TV show, which was entitled Spectre of the Gun. Now, this was an episode that had a warning prior to airing. It featured, mature content, not for kids under 14. So, I don't know how well this episode's going to do, in other countries, if they have censorship laws that might get edited out or whatever. But it deals with gun and the gun, violence issue. One of the things that I quickly noticed is that it's, even my girlfriend noticed it right away. She often watches the show with me, not all the time, because of school and work. But she noticed that it looked a little bit more polished. The writing, the acting, everybody was on top of their game. And, many fans often don't have that much love for Mark Guggenheim, but he actually wrote this episode, I believe. And it's really solid. If you guys remember, Ubisoft was making a video game called Patriots. And it dealt with, nationalistic gun people who were, going to stick it to the man. This episode kind of not plays homage to that, but it touches on that allegory. There is an old shop called Forefather Repairs, and it's very patriotic, and it has a guy with a musket and stuff like that. And, it's like a auto repair shop, something that's not very violent. But it's about a person who takes this, duffel bag and kind of embraces that mentality of, patriotism through violence. And that's kind of, if you've been keeping up with the news, that's something that is kind of rampant in the USA. And it's very interesting because Canada just had an incident where some, ultra right-wing nationalistic person shot up a mosque. We don't cover it here in the United States because, I don't know, maybe it's not our country, but we do cover France when that happens to them, so that can't be it. Most people are kind of saying that because the shooter was Caucasian, he's not getting a lot of coverage. And that gets, into, the issue of race, which Mr. Terrific did bring into this episode, where in the United States, people of color are more likely to get a shot. And that was really strong. So it was a really strong, opinion. But when you have, two awesome African American heroes on Arrow, yeah, it'll be kind of irresponsible not to mention it. So I do want to commend the people of the show commenting on that, because it's really important. Even though it might be like a fictitious show, they really touched upon something really, really important. And, for people that complain, it's like, well, what do you expect? Arrow is kind of dressing up kind of like Robin Hood, and to say that you can't have, social justice commentator on a show that, basically was inspired by, Robin Hood social justice, it's kind of self-defeating. Not to mention that some of the best, noticeable comics from Arrow's history comes from the Green Arrow, Green Lantern era, where they did touch a lot about these social issues. Speaking of that, it was a nice scene. We got to see the origin story of Mad Dog, and how he came to lose his family because of gun violence. He supports guns for home, protection, and he kept his hidden in a safe. When everything goes bad, he ends up losing his family and even losing custody of his kid. I don't want to ruin it too much, but it does say that, often when we talk about gun control, kids are the last things that we're thinking of. And that's the first things we should be thinking about. We shouldn't really be thinking about, like my rights. It's more like, well, it's their rights to live in a healthy environment. Just like I'm not allowed to burn tires or pollute the air, or dump my car oil into drinking water. When you're part of a society, you're living by everybody's rights. When you're living in your home, it's property rights as far as I'm concerned. So it's kind of interesting that this episode dealt with that if you want to have some kind of weapon to protect you in your home, by all means, but you need to be responsible. Just like, people who have swords, they don't really leave them laying around. They have them really up high, bolted to the wall so that kids can't grab them. We also have safety caps for medicine, so that children don't drink it. We have the same protection for children with chemicals, cleaning chemicals in the household. Also, we have parental controls on the TV. So it really is a no-brainer to have some kind of security for home protection, but also being responsible about it. A lot of people don't realize, but Mr. Amell, who plays Arrow, he's from Canada. And statistically, Canada and the USA have the same amount of guns per person, even though, there's less population. And in the US, the gun ownership is more, centric to a very, very smaller group. So there's fewer people buying guns, but they have more of them in the States. So the difference between Canada and the US is just attitude. And it's not so much the guns are dangerous, is more like, the lack of civil respect for others is. You can justify killing, any time of the day, but you can't really have the same excuses for not killing someone. You can have like one good excuse to kill someone, but you have 7 billion excuses not to kill them. And that's the difference. If you look at the people in the UK, if a cop shoots somebody, or kills somebody with like a baton or something, they have to go to court and explain to court the steps that they took before shooting, because, there are SWAT teams in the UK. Regular cops don't carry that much guns, but they do have a taser. They do have, a baton. They do have training. So it's a really, really good episode. And one of the things that I really liked is that you had these two characters, of Mr. Terrific and Mac Dog, who obviously represents the two wings of politics, left wing and right wing. And, they come to an understanding at the very end. This is a nice image that I, found on the internet about both of them kind of being like, we're friends and that we should be united. The episode ended with this nice vigil in front of City Hall. And it was a very, very good show. I mean, I can't say that I wasn't expecting a good show, but this is beyond what I expected. I think Arrow is proving itself to be, like the era of the comics, Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams days. And it's only gotten better this season. If somehow they knock it out of the ballpark this season, it might be the best season of Arrow compared to season 2. Although, season 2 had Deathstroke. So, I'm really excited about Arrow. I want to thank all the people on the show and all the awesome fans for watching it, man. Alright, so we're going to do another topic. Now, this is a little bit more lighthearted, and you're seeing the Justice League statues. No price announced yet, or release date, but they look amazing. This incredible pose of Superman, the classic Superman pose. It only, I haven't purchased the statue of Superman that wasn't the one that it was featured in my original picture of this podcast, the black suit, where you see the skulls, on his foot from Man of Steel, Nightmare sequence. Because I didn't like the poses of the other statues. This pose, I love. I am definitely going to buy this statue. It looks epic. It looks like classic Superman. And I think that, the night is always darker before the dawn kind of a thing. So we have our Superman story arc of 3 movies. The Alien in Man of Steel, the Man in Batman vs. Superman, and now we have the Icon. It's in Justice League, so it's gonna be epic. I'm really excited. I'm also excited for the Batman statue because it's a practical outfit one, or tactical. Sorry, and it features the goggles, all the gauntlet metal things attached to him. We haven't seen a trailer with much action in the suit, but we can only guess it's going to be really kick-ass. We also have another awesome Wonder Woman, and this one has a really classic look. It's just, straight up sword, shield, and lasso. And then, the hair is blowing in the wind. It's pretty iconic, and she has this look of like, like what's next? Or who's next? We also have Aquaman. The likeness in this one was kind of surprisingly cool because he does look like that. And, everybody hasn't realized how awesome this costume is. They kept the green and the orange motif from the original one, and it works. They incorporated some of Jason Momoa's shark teeth tattoos that he has from his native Hawaiian heritage culture, and to the armor, the golden plating armor here towards his foot and around his waist and chest area. It's pretty awesome, pretty epic. You see the trident, really imposing. Jason Momoa is even imposing in miniature form. He's pretty awesome. Anyways, then you see the Flash, kind of with the classic Ezra Miller smirk on his face. I like the gloves, the fingerless gloves. I think it's kind of cool. I do believe there's another version of this costume we're going to get towards the end, a much more classic Silver Age Flash, So this one does it for me. I like it so far. But this is the one he apparently made himself from NASA schematics that he just stole and applied it to the costume. And then, last but not least, we have Cyborg. Cyborg's the last one to cover because he was introduced in the 80s. So all these other characters are older chronologically. I like the fact that Cyborg looks like a machine. Often when you see movies like the new RoboCop or the new Tony Stark Iron Man, you can tell a difference between a person wearing a costume. It looks a little bit more bulkier, and this looks more like prosthetics. If you see someone with prosthetics, the arm or the leg doesn't usually look as beefy as bone and muscle structure. It looks a little bit skinnier. So this is a little unnerving for Cyborg, but it is they are prosthetics. Aesthetically, this is how it's supposed to look. So I'm pretty excited about those statues. I'm going to, I don't know, maybe pick up some extra shifts at work or something. Anyways, so over this past weekend, there was a very surprising showing of Wonder Woman. They had a special screening with Patty Jenkins and Zack Snyder. These are pictures of fans posting it online, so I hope they don't mind that I show them, and you can see how happy they are. Like I said, there's a Reddit, thread going on that it is getting positive buzz, so that is pretty cool. And then last but not least, the Ares statue that you see here. It's a toy version of the statue, but it looks imposing as F. I don't know who the other villains are in the Wonder Woman movie. I think they're from the original, incarnation of Wonder Woman, so it's going to be fun. But this guy, man, this guy looks dangerous. I like the horns, the whole, it's like some kind of beast skull on his head. There are some rumors going around of who's playing him, but I don't want to go into that, so I don't ruin the movie for people that haven't seen it. So yeah, it looks imposing, and it's really nice that it's the god of war, Ares, from Wonder Woman's mythology. So very exciting. And then the last but not least is this little thing from Zack Snyder. The trailer of the Justice League is all part of marketing, and there's a set schedule for release. It's coming soon. Don't worry. That was posted today, not too long ago. So there you have it, guys. All the negativity that all these idiots are trying to spread online, it's useless. There's a lot of stuff to cover about DC. I will be picking my awesome stack of comics at my local comic book store. I might take a couple pictures if the owner is okay with it. He's always fun. And yeah, I might go into some issues of the issues. But I don't know if you guys know, but I don't really like to read comics episodic. I like to read comics kind of binge read story arcs. So for instance, Justice League, when the New 52 happened, I bought them all, and then I read the first 7 issues in one sitting, because that's how the story arc went, and I was blown away. I've been doing this since my early 20s, and I enjoy comics a little bit more. I think that, if you're criticizing 22 pages on a month-to-month basis, you're not going to get a lot of substance, and you're just going to rush through it. You're not going to appreciate the artwork. You're not going to appreciate the deployment, meaning how the story structure was handled from panel to panel. You're not going to appreciate the facial expressions. You're not going to appreciate, motifs, themes, analogies, all these all these levels of substance that you would if you read the entire arc. It's kind of like playing 30 minutes of a video game and calling it good. It's like, I'm done. No, you kind of have to play through most of the story arc to understand it. We do it with television because it's 60 minutes, and most of us read comics very, very quickly, less than that. So yeah, that's how I like to read comics, and that's how I enjoy them. So I will be, putting on some comic book stuff, but there are, so many websites dedicated to rating comics. But I might touch upon a couple of them because we have some cool excitement going on with, Watchmen joining the DC universe. Anyways, this has been a very, very lengthy episode. We're passing 30 minutes, and I hope you enjoyed. Every Sunday, we're here for you, and every Sunday, we improve. Thank you for joining us, and like I say on the Spanish version, say yes to DC, dile sí a DC. Thank you very much.